We're using the same chalice lighting words as Asher lit our chalice in the sanctuary last Sunday for us. Our children of our faith formation program know these very well. So if you're in the room with someone who doesn't, make sure you help them out. We light this chalice because we are Unitarian Universalists. We're a fellowship of open minds, of loving hearts, and helping hands. Together we care for the earth and help to bring peace and justice into the world.
When we talk about what it means to join this community, the first of 4 commitments that we lift up is to nourish your spirit. When you cross the threshold of our sanctuary for the first time, whether brick and mortar or an online threshold, my guess is that you came out of a longing for greater meaning and also possibly a longing for community and to make a difference. Today, we invite you to reflect on 2 questions. 1, beloveds, how fares your spirit? 2, what might nourish and grow your spirit in these times? I've been with so many of you this week on the phone or online, and I can testify that the answer to the first question is quite varied. Some of you welcome the space of solitude or the paring back of schedules that social distancing offers. Some of you don't welcome what feels too isolating or may have greater responsibilities or to-do lists in this context of a pandemic. Others are feeling hopeful about what this time will yield, and yet others are feeling fear and worry about what or who will be lost. Some of you may be feeling a mixture of all of the above. Whatever is the state of your spirit, you are welcome here. We, 5 religious professionals, have gathered today to offer some ways that we connect with the holy, with our deepest selves, our spirits, in the hopes that you might begin to see some possibilities for yourself reflected in our words. After our worship, you are invited to join us at a Zoom coffee hour where you can also share in a small group. Remember, you can listen and not answer. You can always just say pass. I look to so many places to nourish my spirit, to nature and the arts, to sacred texts and stories, history and science, and my practices of prayer and yoga, and to my people, my family, my friends, and you, my beloved spiritual village of Unitarian Universalists. As a minister, when I am in search of food for the spirit, one place that I often turn to is the liturgical calendar of holidays. Many holidays have enlivened people's religious practices for centuries, if not millennia, and they have a well-trodden path quality to them. People have honored these feasts and fasts, celebrations and remembrances, and anchoring passages and stories in times of both ease and dis-ease. This week alone, people around the globe have found ways to honor the spring rites of the equinox, of Ostara, and of Nourish. These holidays and the world outside our doors testifies to the truth that in the midst of a barren season, new life will all the while germinate unseen and then burst forth with radiance and color. Today is the 4th Sunday in 6 Sundays of Lent. It's a time of sacrifice and letting go, a time where we are invited to hold on more steadfastly to what matters most. Yes, this is exactly what this time is about. The psalm offered to us in the Christian lectionary for today is one of the most widely known and read by Christians, Jews, and Unitarian Universalists. It is Psalm 23. And many of you have leaned on these words in a time of challenge or sorrow, as have your ancestors. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We are walking through a valley time, and those who are most vulnerable among us and those on the front lines, you may be closest to that valley experience. May all of you feel in the midst of your lowest moments that you are not alone, that there is a love in the universe from which you can never truly be separated. You are held by that love when you are alone, hungry, sad, and afraid. You are held by that love when you are connected, content, creative, and compassionate. You are held by that love when you wish you could find an escape route. You are held by that love when you know that you were made for such a time as this. You must only look for it to find it, that love embracing you. It will come in the flash of a memory, in the form of another offering you help, in the choice that you make to reach out to someone else, in the warmth of the sunshine coaxing open a bud, and in the sound of my voice now reminding you, you are loved. You are enough. You are everything that matters.
I invite you to join me in singing song number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. The lyrics will be on your screen. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard sing a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Thank you, Stearns, for that beautiful singing. It's always a song that makes me tear up, so I have to compose myself. I have a wonderful book that I'm going to share with you today. It's The Rabbit Listened by Corey Durfeld. One day, Taylor decided to build something. Something new, something special. Something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then out of nowhere, things came crashing down. Chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, 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 cluck. What a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it. Cluck, cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Oh, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting. So the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering. So the elephant also left. One by one, all the animals came. The hyena, let's laugh about it. The ostrich, let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake, shh, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually, they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit coming, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." And the rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." The time has come in our service to do our weekly offering. All the information will be on your screens now.
Perfect. This moment, perfect, golden, grasp it, see it. This moment, laughing, happy, feel it, be it. Curve of face, warmth of hands, butterfly, pin in place when it lands. Try this. Sadness ripened, bursting, taste it, name it. This moment, precious, fleeting, catch it, frame it. Curve of moon, warmth of air, willow bough. Winter soon, be aware now how this sadness, aching, reaching, looking on at this moment, present, distant, shining bubble, touch it, lose it. Happy, laughing, perfect, golden, gold.
Good morning. It is so good to be with you this morning. Lately, I've been daydreaming about the future, allowing my mind to drift to a place where we visit family and friends to share a meal. We laugh, and as we say goodbye, we pause for a long hug at the door as we wander off home with full bellies and broad smiles. These daydreams are helping me imagine and connect with life beyond social distancing and compassionate isolation. These daydreams feel essential as I adjust to accommodate and mitigate the presence of COVID-19 in my life and in our communities. They are a psychic break from the pressing fear, uncertainty, restlessness that is quickly engulfing me and so many of us. We are, I fear, settling into this new routine for longer than we realize. But that doesn't mean we can't remain alive in our imaginations and our daydreams and be held and nourished by what we discover there. An article in the New Yorker noted that a recent discovery pointed to the negative correlation with technology, finding the constant presence of screens and devices in our lives to be robbing our weary brains of restful daydream moments. While we are connecting in ways that are extraordinary and wonderful, the overexposure to technology can impact our capacity to dream and imagine, a practice that is essential to our well-being, especially for the long haul. In the days ahead, I invite you to nourish your spirit by slipping into daydreams. Turn off the technology and allow your mind to wander and see what you discover as you drift away into the random paths of your deepest longings. Yesterday, a breeze came through my window and I could smell spring as it drifted by, and I conjured up a day when we will gather to celebrate and welcome each other once again into our sanctuary, when we will share a meal together and smile broadly and gratefully. My daydreams are full of magic and possibility. They sustain my confidence in our connection as we journey together through this challenging time. I hear this sentiment in a poem, I Often Imagine the Earth by Dan Gerber. Often I imagine the earth through the eyes of the atoms we're made of, atoms, particular, atoms everywhere. No me, no you, no opinions, no beginning, no middle, no end, soaring together like those ancient Chinese birds, hatched miraculously with only one wing, helping each other fly home.
We have a memorial candle to share with our community today. Longtime friend and fellowship member Paul Shapiro passed away from cardiac arrest on Tuesday, March 17th, after a 6-week illness. We hold his wife, Ginny, in our hearts. Paul and Ginny celebrated their 62nd wedding anniversary in November. They were both very active members of our fellowship for several decades, involved in many committees and social action. In retirement, they moved to Pennsylvania and then to Texas. Let us hold the whole Shapiro family in our hearts, and let us hold everyone that has lost a loved one in these weeks. May the legacies of their lives and the lessons in their stories be shared, and may they always be remembered and be a blessing. We light a memorial candle in honor of Paul Shapiro.
And now our responsive reading from our hymnal number 468, We Need One Another, by George E. Odell. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again.
We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone.
We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again.
We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
I can't stand it when people complain about how busy they are. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. And I'm not talking about a simple, oh, I'm just swamped at the moment. I mean, when someone details everything they've got going on and gives so much airtime to their packed schedule that it starts to sound more like bragging than complaining. Okay, we get it. You're busy. Plenty of people are busy. The problem is not unique to you, so stop being insufferable about it. I even came up with a word for this phenomenon. I call it brag-planing. In the first 2.5 months of 2020, I overcommitted myself. Between my 2 big jobs, the side projects I had agreed to, and some harmless but time-consuming family issues, it was too much. There just weren't enough hours in the day or days in the week, and I started hearing myself complaining about how busy I was to anyone who would listen. The impulse to brag-plane about my busyness would sneak up on me, and before I could stop it, just like that, I was one of those insufferable brag-planers. About a month ago, when all those commitments started to become too much, I started thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if everything just stopped for a little while? The world coming to a screeching halt sounded like the best idea ever. What I really wished was that I could have a month or 2 where I could just be in my home with my husband and our dog and not see anybody else and not have to go anywhere else. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Now, before you get mad at me because this whole thing was my idea, I promise I didn't actually suggest this out loud to anyone. It was just a tiny fantasy in the back of my mind that I was sure would never come true. But somehow, some way, my secret wish has been granted in spades. Instead of indulging the tiny voice in the back of my head asking, is this forever? And telling me how trapped we are and that humanity is doomed and that Broadway is never coming back, I've been trying to listen as deeply as I can to the other voice, the one that reminds me that there are parts of this that look like a version of what I was wishing for, that despite the awful, awful circumstances that have led to it, I have been given the gift of time. Time to take my dog for a long walk. Time to make music just for me. Time to call an old friend. Time to read a book. Time to talk, really talk, to my spouse. Time to listen to records. Yes, we have records. Time to plan for the future. The other helpful voice I'm listening to is the one that reminds me that even though I'm making tons of changes to my life at this moment, not a single adjustment I'm making or problem I'm having is unique to me. There are thousands of other Unitarian Universalist music directors desperately trying to stay connected musically to their congregations. Thousands of other voice teachers trying to figure out how to teach lessons over Zoom. Thousands of actors and musicians who've had performances postponed or canceled. To quote a wonderful Pat Humphries song, we're all swimming to the other side. That voice is nourishing my spirit. Friends, this is not going to be forever. We're all going to keep swimming to the other side, and we're going to come out of it stronger and closer than ever. And I know that when it's all over, there are going to be plenty of people brag-plaining about how tough it was to be isolated and uncertain of what the next day was going to bring. But you know what? Let them brag-plain. I can't wait to hear their stories.
Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Those are words from the poet Rumi in his poem, A Great Wagon. In the introduction to his book, Everyday Spiritual Practice, Simple Pathways for Enriching Your Life, longtime UU minister Scott Alexander says, in our faith, every individual is expected, with the help of clergy and community, to nurture and tend the garden of his or her own religious life each and every day. The book is a collection of essays from clergy and lay people who are of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. As my processing this week has moved beyond the initial shock of the reality of COVID-19, and I start to begin to think about what I'm going to need in the weeks and months to come, returning to this particular book has been an invitation for me to remember how important my spiritual practices are in sustaining and nourishing my own soul. Now, my principal spiritual practice is journaling. I try my very best to write for 15 to 20 minutes in a stream of consciousness style. And I have to admit, sometimes that is hard for me. I have a tendency to over-intellectualize everything. But in those moments when I can silence that ever-present critic that lives in my head, that process somehow really seems to work. I also happen to be a fan of a terrific app called Insight Timer. If you've ever wanted to give meditation a try, but you literally have absolutely no idea where to start, it might be an app that you should check out. When my anxiety reaches its peak, I often turn to music. And I have to say, I've been so thankful for Stearns this week and its daily music reflections on Facebook. Those are all things that work for me. Maybe for you, you do something completely different. Or maybe you don't do anything. And maybe this would be a good time to start, or start again, a spiritual practice to investigate what might work for you. Maybe this is the perfect moment to consider adding a new spiritual practice into your repertoire. I think it's important to remember, though, that you cannot really be spiritual by yourself. We are social animals, and our human capacity and potential is fully unlocked only when we are connected, even in a time of physical distancing. The Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, has said, "A lone practitioner is an ex-practitioner." So I wonder, what would it look like if we were to support each other in this process of finding our spiritual practices? Imagine the resources we can share with one another. Imagine the comfort of knowing that you have the support of a community. You are not alone. So please consider me a resource. If you want to talk about exploring a new spiritual practice or deepening an existing one, then reach out. We really are in this together. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground.
I invite you to join me in our closing song, number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing. Oh Lord, you gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you gotta shout. Oh Lord, you gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. 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 You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance. Oh Lord, you gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
You're all invited to join us for a virtual coffee hour. Join us on Zoom for a small group. Go to our website, www.muuf.org/virtual to find out all the details. We hope to see you soon.
Take courage, friends.
The way is often hard. The path is never clear.
And the stakes are very high.
Take courage.
For deep down, there is another truth.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.